Mr. Silva. Ray Silva is the owner and operator of 377 Worm Farm. He is a retired residential and commercial painter since 2019. He's been married for 53 years. He has 2 children with a blended family of 9 children, and Adriana with 3 children. He lives here in Granbury since 1992. He served in the U.S. Navy. Early years was occupied with chores of being raised on a farm where he fell in love with all aspects of working the land. He continues to learn new aspects of being a good steward to our environment. His faith journey continues at St. Francis Cambria Catholic, Cabrina Catholic Church. May I introduce Ray Silva?
Well, first off, thank y'all very, very much for having me. I can't really get started without sharing something that the Master Gardeners Club here in Hood County has given me. My 4-year-old granddaughter, we went to Romancing the Monarchs last year, and she still talks about that today. She got her face painted. She painted rocks. She let butterflies go. And she doesn't understand why y'all don't do that every weekend. But, you know, what y'all provide the community so many times goes unthanked, unappreciated. But for every one person that says it, there's 10 more thinking it. So I want to be the first one to say it. Thank all of y'all for what you do, from the annual plant sale to doing so much hours and work going to maintaining the gardens. And like Dale said, we're getting ready to have the migration again. It's getting ready to come through. So what y'all giving me, I can never repay y'all. To see that little girl's smile on her face, and each one of you taking the time to show your interest to all the children that showed up. So thank you very much. I want to thank you for that introduction. You know, I didn't realize I'd been married 53 years. Wow. But I have, and I've given her a reason to put my clothes to the curb too many times. But she didn't, so I'm blessed to be here today to visit with y'all. I'd like to break the ice a little bit, and let's go back a few years. We were first married 3 or 4 years, and we decided to retire early that night, so we went back to the back bedroom to retire. And a couple hours in, we heard a loud noise. Oh my gosh. She told me, what noise did you hear? And I said, I don't know, it's the same thing you heard. So we got up and started walking towards the kitchen. And she's holding on my arm, we're walking towards the kitchen. And by the time we got to the kitchen, I flipped on the light. I don't know why, but I flipped on the light. And there was a man there with a gun. This is a joke, folks.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Let me put a little disclaimer in there. But he stood there and he looked at us both, and he said, you know, I can't have any witnesses. I'm going to have to resolve this situation. So he pointed at my wife and said, well, I can't dispose of anybody if I don't know their names. And he turned to my wife and said, what's your name? And she said, well, Mary Lynn. His head dropped for a minute. He said, I can't do you no harm. That was my mother's name. Boy, I thought a minute. And he turned and pointed at me. He said, what's your name? And I said, Ray, but all my good friends call me Mary Lynn. But my journey in the worm business started back when I was the oldest of 6 kids, and my dad was career military. And at 14, young man needing a few dollars to fold up and put in his pocket, I did everything from cutting grass, selling Christmas cards, anything I could make an extra bucks. And then I found a honey hole of worms. And we lived near a lake. And I said, oh, this is perfect. I can just dig these worms up, set out on the corner in a little cardboard box, and sell worms. Well, I went around to all my neighbors and got empty glass jars, and went down to my spot and filled. I didn't know if I was putting 20 or 200 in a jar. I was just filling it up, and I'd sit out there on Saturday mornings, 25 cents a jar.
Oh.
I was getting $2 a yard to mow a yard, and it took me all day to mow, edge, and rake that. But I could make $2 in about an hour and a half doing this. So I found out where my career was headed. So I'd get up every morning, Saturday morning, to do that. If I wasn't there, they knew where I lived. They'd come knocking on the door. Ray, you got any worms? Well, all good things come to an end. My dad was career military, and so we ended up picking up and moving again. So that was just a distant dream that I had. Life gets in the way. You move forward, get married, have children. You have to work for a living, as it was mentioned in the opening. I was a residential and commercial building painter for 40 years. If you ever down to old stockyards, if you go down in front of the stockyard commission building in the middle of Exchange Street and stand there and turn 360 degrees, if you can see it's been painted, I painted it. I've been there. In 2019, my hands started to shake, and I had to kind of give it up. Couldn't draw a straight line with a paintbrush. Quick story on that: a little boy that I was mentoring, bringing him up through the things and bringing him up through the ranks. And I said, "Now, Brian, you just do what I do." And I'm sitting there trying to draw a straight line, right? I give him the brush, and I walked over there. I come back, and I said, "Brian, what are you doing?" He said, "Just like you." So, I had to improve my teaching techniques on that a little bit. But as I retired, I was around the house. My wife was, I was active. I'm busy. And she goes, "You gotta have to find something to do. This is killing me. Either go back to work or find something to do." And I thought back on the worm business I had the pleasures of doing when I was a young man. So I got on the internet and started looking around. Boy, I was surprised. The worm industry there is so much for me to learn. Year and a half, 2 years later, where I'm at today, I'm still learning. I belong to a good nationwide worm farm group that if I have a question, I can generally contact one of them and I can get a straight answer on it. I thought I'd lived here at Lake Granbury. I was going to raise worms. I'm going to set this place on fire selling fish worms. The more I learned, the further away I got from my dream of doing that, because there was too many things in the way to keep me from being able to achieve that goal. But I also learned about vermicomposting and worm castings and gardening. I go, wow, this is more exciting than selling worms for fish bait. So I went another route and started harvesting the worm castings and selling them. I also said, well, one product isn't enough. So then I learned that you can also take the worm casting and make a compost tea out of it. And I learned how to do that. And I have a couple of horses, perfect free source for fertilizer, so I made my own potting soil. And that's the only 3 items I sell, and it pays for itself, and I'm happy. Yeah. And there's a whole routine on doing that. But I got into with the Hood County Farmers Market. They were looking for a product if you could do something or build something yourself, either make it or grow it, or they don't want a flea market atmosphere at the Hood County at the market. They want the artisans are fine as long as you make it yourself. Mm-hmm. So I set up shop there. It's over there behind Stonewater Church in front of the movie theater. It's every Saturday 9 to 12. I see Miss Helen and Mr. Peck here. They believe in supporting the local vendors religiously. Every week they're there supporting the vendors. Miss Pam has come, and also I've seen several other faces. I don't know you by name, but I've seen you there, and it's very appreciative that you come. On getting back to the worm schedule, I haven't spoken to a group like this, so I get kind of tongue-tied. But where I have really enjoyed it, there's a homeschool co-op here in Hood County, and I have spoken to several of the homeschoolers. We meet up at the Acton Reserve, Acton Nature Habitat up there under their thing. And the kids, it's amazing how many good questions they come up with, how attentive they are. But I do tone it down, and the verbiage I use is more directed at them instead of and the adults. People say, one of the questions that come up is, what kind of worms do you grow? And I grow European night crawlers. The scientific name is Dendrobina hortensis. Just easier to say European night crawler. They understood that. The reason why I chose to raise them, because they are prolific eaters, and they eat half their body weight a day. You got 5 pounds of worm, that's 2.5 pounds of feed they go through every day. Wow. What they eat has to come out somewhere. That somewhere is the worm castings. So that the other reason why is they're big enough for fish bait, and they hold up under the Texas weather better. I didn't bring any today because of the heat. Just even transporting them from the truck inside, that little bit of shock would hurt them. But if you go to Walmart or something, you open the refrigerator door and you grab the worms out of there, a little boy does, and he's gonna go fish at the tank. Well, generally about an hour later, all the worms are dead, because they come from a controlled environment of 72 into the Texas heat, and they're not acclimated to those temperature inversions. The European nightcrawler can go down to 35 degrees up to about 85 degrees without hurting them. A little maintenance in the wintertime, a little maintenance in the summertime to keep them comfortable. So I chose to go that route. The kids make a little better memory having live worms and to fish with, and it helps me by not having to worry about maintaining the stock and the supply. But for vermicomposting and wanting a bigger return on the castings, you'd want to go to the red wiggler. The red wiggler is, the name on that is Fatina insignia. Fatina insignia. Red wiggler. And but on the red wigglers, there's about 1,000 worms to a pound. And I'm saying this for relation in size. They go down anywhere from 2 to 4 inches. It's about their primary location to survive. On the European night crawlers, there's only 240 to a pound. So you can see it's a little larger, but they'll go down to about 8 inches. And they can survive the winters and the summers by going a little deeper than the red wigglers can. And that's another reason why I chose to go that route on that type of worm. But even the red wigglers are the same. 5 pounds of worms, 2.5 pounds of what they'll eat. They eat about half their body weight. So on the dendrobinas, I'm just gonna, if y'all could pass these out. If there's not enough, y'all can share. But this kind of gives you I'm gonna start here. You can pass some back or share. Gives you a little
I'll just share you. Okay.
If y'all could share, I may have enough here. I don't know.
That's what the cocoon looks like.
But the process growing the worms is they start off,
Gotcha.
and you have 2 worms. Kids love this too. There's not a male and there's not a female. Okay, there's not a male, there's not a female. This is called the clitellum. That's the band that you see around the earthworm, any type of worm. 111 different types of worm. We only have 7 here in Texas. There's 2 evasive worms that we have here in Texas that we watch for. If we find them, we're supposed to call the extension agency so they can try to eradicate them. One of them being the Asian jumping worm, and the other one's the hammerhead worm. Just like a hammerhead shark, there's a worm with a hammerhead head. So if you see those 2, you should contact your extension agent, let them make the proper diagnosis, and see if they can eradicate them. But the way the worms reproduce is they'll slide underneath the clitellum, and when they do that, slide under that clitellum, they're exchanging fluids. For lack of a better word, they're sperm. And I don't use that with the kids. Too many questions come up. But after they've exchanged, if you're ever digging up in the garden, you find some worms and they're all tangled up, that's what they're doing. They're reproducing. So once they've slid in between each other's clitellum, that clitellum falls off. It falls off. They just dispose of it, and it's a cocoon. It falls into the ground, depending on conditions. Optimal conditions is 21 days. If everything is perfect, they'll hatch within 21 days. It's too dry, too wet, too cold, too hot. If there's not that Goldilocks zone, then it's going to take maybe up to 45 days. If they haven't hatched in 45 days, they're not going to hatch. If you find a cocoon, if it's white like this, that means it's pretty fresh, pretty new. As it develops, 18th, 19th, 20th day, they're going to kind of turn brown, and that's the color of the worm that's inside. Anywhere from 1 to 4 worms inside of a cocoon is average. Okay. So they say technically you can double your population every 90 days, but that's, yes, it will double in every 90 days, but there's different stages of the worm. So it's not, they're not going to, in 90 days you're going to have all these adults. It doesn't work that way. But after the cocoon hatches, the first worms that come out, they're called hatchlings. In the worm industry, they call them wisps. And if you can picture something as small as your eyelash, take an eyelash and cut it in half, and that's about how thick a wisp is, or a hatchling. Wow. They're hard to see. You can overlook them if you're sifting. They'll stay in that range for 3 to 6 weeks, generally. And then they'll go into from the hatchling, they'll go into a juvenile stage, which is more distinctive, more, you can tell that they're you can see them crawling around at this point. And they'll go 3 to 6 months as a juvenile. And then from there, they'll go into the adult stage. After 6 months, they're able to reproduce. And they will continue to produce on the life cycle, that worm's life cycle. It could be anywhere from 2 years to 5 years. Everything depends on conditions. Right now, it's going to be hard to go out under that tree and find any worms. It's just too hot. Those that couldn't dig deep enough or doesn't have moisture control, they probably won't make it, But their eggs, 45 days later, as we get a cool spell, and they'll hatch and regenerate. But once they get to the adult stage, then the process changes over again. At the time when they hatch and they're a hatchling or a wisp, they're not really foraging for foods and eating half their body weight and all that. They're looking at the microbial life that's in the soil, and they're sustaining it by absorbing that. A worm, 90% of it's water. So if you give it too much water, it's going to drown. If you don't give it enough, it's just going to dry up. So you want to, people who are having worm want to raise worms for themselves. If you can get it where you can grab the bedding and squeeze it like a wet, wrung out sponge, and just get 1 or 2 drops of water, that's perfect. Anything over, if it's just running out, it's too wet, you're going to drown them. If it's not getting any water, then they're suffocating. So the internet has been my savior. I mean, anything I want to know, I can go there and find out. I've looked at I probably looked at 15 or 20 different worm farmers, and believe it or not, there's 15 or 20 of them do it different. No, if you want to get started, you can get started. You can't do it wrong unless you don't water them and don't feed them. But I found a system that works for me. And the bedding is kind of, the mix is, I use a 50-50 mix. They kind of like a 30-to-1 mix. And if you pass these back, my worm bedding consists of sphagnum peat moss, Canadian sphagnum peat moss. I try to get the organic kind. If you don't get the organic, then it's kind of hadn't been rinsed, and it's got a lot of saline in it. So it kind of has a high sodium base to it. And then I use cardboard, which it's a mix between browns and greens. Browns is your I use cardboard. There's other areas other items that can work that's on that list. The greens, vegetable scraps, leaves.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
Cardboard, just a thin cardboard or the heavier corrugated?
I go to Kroger, and when they're stocking their shelves in the meat department or in the soup aisle, I gather up all their boxes, and then I run it through a 16-page crosscut. And they love the perforation in cardboard. I shred all mine down just because it's easier. Once it gets wet, it breaks down, and it's easier for the worms to digest it. If you don't have a crosscut or a shredder, just soak down a piece of cardboard so you can rip it with your hands and just lay it in there. They'll eat it. Do it, shred it by hand, because it does. I don't want to make it sound like it's harder than it is, because it's not. But I use the sphagnum peat moss. I use the cardboard, and the other two items that I use is commercial or not agricultural lime, because your commercial lime has too many chemicals in it, and that'll kill the worms. The commercial lime is what they're using in concrete and tape and bed mud and stuff like that. And you want to use the organic lime. And I use very little of that, and that's just to help bring the pH down. Sometimes, as I mentioned on the sphagnum peat moss, if it's not organic and if it's got the saline in it, that lime will help bring that acidity down. And then I use playground sand for grit. Worms don't have teeth. They're like a chicken. They have gizzards. They got 9 gizzards. So they have to have some type of grit. I use playground sand. It's just easier for my method. Some people they can use ground up marble dust. Some people save their eggshells, rinse them, then they bake them for 15, 20 minutes, and then crush them up and feed that to them. If you don't clean your eggshell, I haven't heard that it's happened, but the salmonella could affect the worms. So the more you can do to sanitize what you feed them, the better results you're going to have on that. But on the bedding, the most important part is keeping that pH, and it may be the same with, I'm not versed enough with plants, but they like that pH to be around 6.5 to 7.5. That's their Goldilocks zone. If you get it too high, that's where the lime comes in and drops it down. If it gets too low, you can add a little diatomaceous earth and bring that up. The food that I feed, I buy commercial food. I go to Missouri Food. They make food for every kind of animal living, and scientists have put together a formula that works for each animal. Well, they make one for worms, and it comes in a powdered form, and I sprinkle it out there. You never really want to feed a worm more than they can eat in 2 days. To get back to that, I use a commercial food, but you can also use any kind of scraps, vegetable scraps. You're cutting up the tops off corn, lettuce that's wilted, cucumbers. And they love avocados. If you lay an avocado shell in the ground, 2 days later you pick it up and it's full of worms. They just love avocados, watermelon rinds. They'll eat it down to where that green part of the watermelon rind looks like a piece of paper. They'll take it down. So the things that I steer away from, onions, citrus items, meats, it invites another category of problems is what happens. The fruit gnats, and there's ways to get rid of the gnats online. What I found good to use is I'll take a little jar, I'll put like a tablespoon of dishwashing soap, and a tablespoon of vinegar, and a tablespoon of water, and then put a lid on it and poke holes in it. They dive into it and it kills them. But what I say here, it works for me. If you decided to do this on your own, do a little research. See your proximity. Some people keep it under the bed. That's fine. My setup's in the garage at this time. Thank you. But the food, the important part, like I said about the food, never feed them more than they can eat in 2 days. And if it's a dry food, have a little spritz bottle and wet it down. 'Cause they tend to, the moisture tends to create a little more bacteria quicker for them to feed on. I'm gonna get like my grandpa. My grandma would give him a cup of coffee. She'd just put a straw in it and he would do this. I learned from him. I learned. My day's coming. My day's coming. But it's a hit and miss thing. You have to find out what works for you, what's your availability stuff. I kept this as cheap as I could. I wanted it to pay for itself. I didn't want to have to put it. You can put in hundreds, thousands of dollars into something, but if it's not working, all you've done was spend hundreds or thousands of dollars. And I started off on a shoestring, and my goal was to help the community, and it paid for itself. Like I said, I retired. I'm in a position where I don't have to keep working after retirement. I'm lucky. Social Security is great, as long as I can stay within that margin that they give me. But I started off with a mortar bin like this. Home Depot, Lowe's have it. It's called a mortar bin. They use it to mixing up mud and everything. You can see it's not very big. I did this for a year. I had numerous of them. Kept this, and when I'm brooding, I'll put a date on here, what time I've taken all my adults out and my cocoons in there, and I watch the date for the cocoons to hatch, and keep checking my bedding that I put in there. In the different stages, I go from cocoons to the hatchling to the juveniles to the adult. It's a lot of fun to label it and keep track of it. Gives me the opportunity to play with it too. I can come in here and aerate the soil with my hands, keep it fluffed up, keep a good air source in there, and to maintain the moisture, I just cut a piece of plastic to lay on top, and it will dry out around the edges that's not covered with the plastic, but it keeps it pretty moist even in this heat. So it don't make, I'm trying not to make it sound as harder than it is, because it's really a simple, each one of you could do something like this and put it in the laundry room, put it in the garage shelf or something, and have enough castings to put in for your own house plants, your potted plants. For the garden, you need a little bigger operation. You know, if you got a quarter-acre garden, you're going to need some kind of.
So what's your perfect temperature for that?
They love it at 75.
Okay.
I try to keep it between 70 and 80 is where I like it.
Okay.
Optimum condition would be 75. The reason why, a secondary reason why I put a little piece of plastic on it, and you could use cardboard, burlap, not only for the moisture control, but it keeps the worms happy and secure. When your worms arrive, if you order them from Mimi's Worms or Uncle Jim's or somebody like that, they've traveled through the mail, they're lethargic, they're nervous, they don't know where their new environment is. The first day or two, don't put this on there. Have a light or something, because they do not like the light pressure. And once for 48 hours, once they're in their new bedding for 48 hours, then now it's home. And they won't try to escape. That first 2 days you say, oh, what's wrong? My bedding's bad. No, they're just in a strange environment and they want to escape. But after 48 hours, put that plastic on there, and that will help maintain the moisture control. You feed them, water them, put the plastic back on. And it's pretty simple, it really is. Next question is, how do you get your castings? Well, you're watching it about every 3 weeks, because we're on that 21-day cycle of the new ones hatching out. I'll go in there and I'll start to dry it out the week before, leave it exposed for the ambient air to touch it, and it starts to dry it out. And then I'll scoop it out. This isn't the one I use, this is just for demonstration. The one I use has wheels on it, and it's a little easier. But it's a 1/8 inch screen. You can make your wooden frame a 1/8 inch screen. keeps the cocoons from falling through, so I can put them into the next bin, but it allows all the worm castings to fall through. And I'll just dump it in there. I have a setup over a bin like this with wheels, and it just rocks back and forth manually. And when I'm done, it's all castings. I call them overs. The stuff that didn't fall through or the over material. I'll dump them back into a 5-gallon bucket, and I'll put them in their specific bin for their timeline. Once they get to be adults, I have something like this. Farmers are going to know what I'm talking about. It's a 10-foot feed bunk. It's 10 foot long, it's 2.5 feet wide, and about 2.5 foot deep. Looks just like this. It's got a frame on it, and that's what you put your cattle feed in, horse feed, whatever. And it's a wedge. I have a wedge system in that it starts here all the way to 10 foot. So I'm harvesting, moving down and starting over. It's just a continual flow of me being able to have worm castings to sell. Aeration, moisture, well, that's all. That's very, very important. Those are the two major pieces of equipment. You can get just like gardening. I'm sure you have your main things to do the bulk of the work, but you may have something that scratch the dirt. You may have a small spade to dig a hole. There's different things that make your life easier worm farming, and you acquire those things that make it easier for you. But the two main things is a box. I've already told you about the bedding that I use, which happens to be, I'll say it again, the Canadian sphagnum peat moss, cardboard, a little bit of lime. When I say a little bit, I'm using 5 gallons of peat moss, I'm using 5 gallons of cardboard, I'm using just a little palm full of lime, and a little bigger palm full of playground sand. Mix it all up, you moisten it down, and you're ready to go. The products that I've come up, I was offered that I could bring some product to sell if I wanted to. That's not what I do. If you want to buy some, I'm at the Hood County Farmers Market every Saturday, 9 to 12. They'll be happy to sell you some. I did bring castings, samples to try on a house plant at home. If you have a house plant that's yellow leaves, spindly, not looking as strong as it should be, then I want you to take these castings home, scratch the top surface, put about a third of that bag that I'm going to give you around your plant, water it in, and it's going to leach down to the roots. Before and after pictures. People will not believe me. I said, you put this on your plants, take a picture first. In 48 hours, 72 hours, take another picture. Stuff like this works. That's untreated. You buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's and plant it in the ground on what they have. That's that. Same timeline and everything. That's with the worm castings. Look at your root balls. How the difference in. The tomatoes. I had a customer tell me about their tomatoes that they planted, did a test with 2 tomatoes. Just like they bought it, had 2 blooms on it. The one that they put the worm castings and compost in had 12. So it improves like Howard Garrett says, you can plant anything you want in that dirt right there, but it's only going to do as good as that dirt is right there. Mm-hmm. So you need to find out what the deficiency is in that dirt before you can get optimum conditions. Well, something I did with the worm castings, show my ignorance here, they said, well, what's in your worm castings? I know what I fed them, I know what they gave me, but I don't, that's not what they were asking. They were asking a point of the content of the worm castings. I got the information from Amanda over at the County Extension Agency, and she gave me a form. I'm gonna let you pass these around. She gave me a form to, y'all probably seen these or done it yourself, but at the AgriLife, if you want to know what your soil's doing, you just follow the instructions on the sample bag that they want you to send them, fill out the appropriate paperwork. There is a fee involved. I used the number 4 on the chart, and 7 to 10 working days later, they sent me back an analysis on what was in my worm castings. And these are free. The paperwork and stuff is free. The fee at A&M isn't free. But you can pick this stuff up at the County Extension Agency through Leanne or Amanda, whoever's in the office. When I got the analysis back, I was looking at it, and it amazed me. Golly, sodium and zinc and potassium, and how'd they get all that? Every aspect of the mineral and trace elements that I was getting out of my worm castings were in the high or extremely high ratio. So I know what I was doing was good because I was getting those types of results. But back to what I was saying, you can plant anything you want in that ground right there, but it's only going to do as good as the ground is. So I can offer this, tell my customers that this is what I can offer you through my worm castings. If it's another issue, when you get your soil result back and you say you're low on potassium, don't go buy $30, $40 worth of soil amendments. All you need is potassium to bring it up to where you want to be. Again, the sweet spot on your pH is so important. Now, that's a general statement. I think tomatoes like it a little less acidic. I think some of your desert palms, they like cactus, they like it well drained and like it a little more acidic. So I haven't done enough research on all the plants on the different spectrums that they like, but most of your vegetables in the vegetable garden, that they like that 6.5 to 7.5 spot. And by using the worm castings, that helps as an amendment to that soil. That if it's missing it, the plants will suck it up. They'll take it up. That's another thing about the pictures. You'll see that difference within 48, 72 hours. My mind gets thinking faster than my mouth does. But what?
I get that.
I get interested in this, and sometimes I say, well, I know what I want to say, but they don't know what I'm trying to say, so I miss out on some good information. But no, I'll take that same worm castings and I'll brew it like a tea. I cold brew it for 48, 72 hours. I'll generally take a pound of worm castings and 2 gallons of water, and I aerate it like a minnow aerator for keeping your minnows alive. I'll run an aerator with those castings, and after that period of time, I strain it out through a cold water filter, and it gives me a concentrated worm castings. The same minerals and trace elements that are in the worm castings instead of a dry form, you're able to get it in a liquid form. A 1/4 cup of this to a gallon of water. That's how concentrated it is. See there again? My mind went fast, just flew right by that. One of the things I also say is, if you're gonna use the compost teas, don't use your regular tap water that's got chlorine in it. That kind of defeats the purpose in some of the aspects. You can use tap water, but let it set out for 24 hours to degas, to get rid of the chlorine that's in it, and then proceed, your regular regimentation of watering. I keep forgetting that, so it must have been important that I wanted to say. Golly, that's terrible. But there again, the castings, I have it at the flea market for sale, but I got a box up here. I do quick math. I may be short a few, but I want everybody to take a thing of castings home and try it just to test at your house. If somebody doesn't get any, please come by the farmer's market. I give it to you free. I make more sales giving samples away. People come back to Ray, I need another bag of that dirt. That's all they know. I give them some dirt, and they said it works. So if somebody doesn't get a sample of this, please come by the market and let me give you some. Just say, hey Ray, I didn't get it. Let me open it up for questions in case I didn't touch on everything. Yes, ma'am.
I have Asian jumping worms in my yard. Will they kill the European?
No, they won't kill them, but they eat the food source.
Okay.
So the Asian jumping worms don't burrow down; they stay in the thatch. They stay right in and that's where most of your decay and your microbial life is. Well, they'll eat all that, and the other worms don't have anything to eat.
Okay.
Okay, that is why it's so. Most worms eat half their body weight a day. The Asians will eat 3 times their body weight a day.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if if you got them now, because they don't look like a worm so much as they almost look like a baby snake.
Yes.
And you touch them, they just get all jittery and everything.
Yes.
Where people that don't know they have them after heavy rain, look at the worms that crawl out of your St. Augustine thatch out onto the concrete, and probably 75% of that may be the Asian jumping worms. If it's a regular earthworm, you're going to know it's an earthworm. Everything about it looks like an earthworm. But the Asian jumpers, you touch it and they explode. I mean, they got so much energy built up.
Okay.
But that's why they want you to let them know, let them come properly identify it, because they're trying to eradicate them. You know, that and hammerheads. But without participation, we can't. Yes, ma'am.
On the Asian, what color do they look like in approximate size?
Approximate size is going to be 5 to 6 inches, about like that. And they're going to be kind of a solid brownish, reddish brown color, the biggest part. And their clitellum's hard to see. That's another thing on a regular earthworm. The clitellum part is very defined and unique, and you can tell. Where on the Asian jumper, it almost blends in with the body. And some of those, and on the cocoons on those, they've gone 3 and 4 months before they hatch.
Wow.
Because they wait for that optimum time to hatch, and then they'll hatch. They won't bite you, you know. Like I said, they don't have teeth, but they absorb and digest all the microbial life that's in the thatch, and prevents the other good worms from being able to survive. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I had some worms that crawled out onto my porch. I took a picture of it, and they were identified as red wigglers. So I have red wigglers.
Probably, if that's what they were doing. I don't know how, without seeing them, some of the things you can look at, the red wigglers are a little smaller than the Europeans, and they're segmented. I mean, they got little bands on them, they're segmented. You can see the segmentation on it. Nothing wrong with that, just they're not a solid looking color. And those are generally your red wigglers. They're beneficial. It's a good thing, yes ma'am, that's a good thing.
You know, I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
they've started eating in my yard, as a matter of fact.
Europeans
Looks like
have a
there's flower
yellowtail.
there.
The red wigglers don't.
Jumping worms in there.
And that's one of the identifying, when you're buying worms, if you're buying red wigglers and they got yellow tails, then you're getting Europeans. Yes, ma'am.
The hammerheads, they are carnivorous, right? They do eat the other worms? The hammerhead worms?
I don't have that answer. I haven't had a discussion with anybody that could tell me that, and I haven't looked it up. I just know about the Asian because I had a specific incident with them. The hammerheads, I just know that they're evasive, and they want to know if we find them. Because if I'm not mistaken, on the hammerhead, you cut it, and you have 2 now. If I'm not, that's what I've heard, and through a pretty reliable source. I think that's the only worm that does that. But they can, kind of like a lizard, he knocks his tail off, he can regenerate his tail. A hammerhead worm can regenerate itself too.
Well, I read about the hammerhead. Also, it secretes a toxin. And if your dog or cat or something, or you touch it, it can actually make your pet sick if they lick it.
I can see
But
that happening.
they're tiny and skinny. I've had 2. I've
see.
got all the junk in my yard. and I've had 2, and they're skinny, like a string of
string,
spaghetti.
yeah.
They're very skinny and long and black and white striped. But they have that tiny little hammerhead on the end. This way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about stringy. There's something that worms get. Even you, the best worm farmer there is, they can get protein poisoning, and in layman terms, they call that a string of pearls. So if you're raising worms, or you're around a bunch of worms, or even if you buy them at the fish bait store and you look at it, and they call it a string of pearls because that's what that worm looks like. It's just got beads in it, and that's from protein poisoning. They're eating their own feces, and they're just not having enough food to survive.
I looked at the hammerhead, and it is carnivorous. It eats
Okay.
worms and things.
Oh.
I can see why.
Apparently it's toxic, so.
That's what she was saying.
Yeah, your pets touch it or whatever, and it does, if you cut it, you're right.
Okay, and
Apparently they do that intentionally sometimes, leave a body part.
I see. it makes sense. I have not personally seen one other than on the internet. You know. Yes, sir.
I've heard that regular earthworms you see, you cut them in half, they'll both live. Is that
It's
true?
possible. I haven't seen that or heard that. If that was the case, I'd go through and cut all my worms in half, and I can double my population. But
I don't
yeah,
know.
you make
I've
good
heard that
sense.
too.
You make good sense.
Because I have cut them in half and
Did
accidentally, but
did they reproduce?
I don't know. I just-
Yes, sir.
Can you explain more your sifting process?
Sure. Like I said, I have them dated. I know at what stage each bend is in. 21 days, there's a possibility of cocoons hatching. So I don't want a bunch of wisps or hatchlings in this stuff I need to sift, because I'm kind of ruining it, throwing them away. They're so delicate. So about the week, 14 days they're covered. The last 7 days I uncover them, so the ambient temperature dries those castings out. If you don't let them dry out, it'd be like sifted mud. They're wet, moist, and you can't sift it. But once you let it dry out, then they fall through that screen pretty easy. So after 14 days, I open it up and let it start to dry, and then I sift it out. I take the overs or what's left in my screen, and I start me a new bend, because that's got my cocoons in it. It's going to have some adults in it that are still reproducing. But I've harvested the castings, and now I have the cocoons and the worms for a new cycle. I take my tape off, I write a new date on it, and I monitor it for the next thing. There's a gentleman in Enid, Oklahoma. He does raise worms because he's got to keep his business going, but he doesn't raise worms for sale in any aspect. He strictly, he's got a pallet, and on each pallet there's 35 buckets of worms.
Wow.
And every 2 weeks, you know, he waters the first amount he puts in there, and then for 2 weeks he's allowing that to dry. After 2 weeks, he harvests it. He's got a certain type of harvester that vibrates and collects, and all he does is sell castings to Home Depot, Lowe's. He's got a big operation, but his idea, he has to maintain some accountability for his worms and his cocoons, so he can. Otherwise, if he didn't do anything after 2 years, everything would be dead, and he'd have to start over. From starting at beginning, you're looking at 9 months before you got really viable adults to do anything with. And that's one thing I wanted to say also. If you want to buy worm castings, try to find somebody local in your area, and it doesn't necessarily have to be me. Just if you go to Home Depot and Lowe's, they have worm castings for sale. Some of the nurseries here in town have worm castings for sale. You need to be careful on how old they are, because after about a week and a half, the microbial life is going to die, and then after about 3 or 4 months, the time release is being broken down. So if something's been on the shelf for a year, I'm not saying it's not good. It's still better than Miracle Grow, you know. But it may not be. You may not be utilizing it to its full potential. Miracle Grow works great that first 2 weeks, then it plateaus. That's what it was designed to do, and it's a chemical. Where your worm castings that come up here for a month, jump up again, then jump up again. After 3 or 4 months, I generally recommend that you replenish. If you're using it in a raised bed or a garden, replenish those worm castings. Just keep that ground vital, you know. But that's kind of, it's all about when you're doing the plants, I can only assume that you're paying attention to the nature that's around it. You can look at it, and if it needs water, if it's not doing good, it's an iron deficiency, yellow leaf, whatever it is, you can kind of, after you've been doing it a while, you kind of got a sense on what's wrong. You got to fix it, use the proper maintenance to get that optimum plant that you want. Well, it's the same thing with worms. You know, if it's working for you, you want to continue doing it. If it's not working for you, you got to change up your routine. I'll share this with you right now because of the heat. I started off with 240 worms, a pound. And earlier, May, I guess, I had about 12,000. And I've only been doing this about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. Mice have also found that garage.
Uh-oh.
They love worms. I've got glue boards out, I've got traps out, I've got poisons out. They want the worms. So I got to come up with a system to, if somebody has a good idea, can share.
Moles too,
Huh?
moles.
Oh, moles?
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll do it too.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get me a 5-gallon bucket and make a lid for it with a wire through the center of it, so when they, and a board to get up on top, when they walk up on that lid, it'll drop them in.
I've seen
seen that. I want to
Yes.
try making it.
Yes. So,
I'm too poor to go buy one. You know,
I have
my
a
wife
quick-
says I'm too cheap to buy one, but I say I'm too poor. There's a difference.
My wife says
now,
too.
I've got a quick question about your casting tea. Is it strictly a drench for the soil? It's not foliar?
I've had people tell me they've taken, after they've mixed a gallon of it
Yeah.
up, they're going to plant a new plant. They take it out of the container, they just dredge it and
Okay.
put it in there. It's totally organic, so you can't hurt the plant. You can put it in a spritz bottle. You can
Okay.
spray the leaves, the stem.
Okay,
It will.
okay.
There's a word for it. Is it synthetically, or there's a word for it where it absorbs through the leaves, and
Photosynthesis.
well, that would be for light.
Well, that's true.
But it would, it absorbs the moisture through the.
Systemic.
That's it. Systemic.
Oh, geez, smart.
But I had, and then you just use it as you normally water it.
Okay.
But as I mentioned, after two weeks or something, you're going to start losing the microbial life. While it's fresh, it's got the microbial life in it. Once you open it and you decide to use some of that, mix you a gallon of it, take a little pinch of sugar and drop in it. What happens, that gives a food source for the microbial life in it. It's not going, those microbes aren't going to live there forever. The minerals and trace elements are going to be there. But if you like the additional microbial life to be there, just give them a little something to eat after you've opened it for the first time.
Well, I'll be.
So,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Make any difference whether the
Oh,
sugar
yeah.
is beet sugar or cane sugar?
Have no idea, ma'am. I just use granulated sugar. I'll just take a little pinch of it.
Use cane sugar? Like,
The stuff I buy in the store.
yeah, but the stuff you buy in the store, if you don't specifically buy cane sugar, it's beet sugar.
See, I learned something. I did not know that, but
C&H is cane.
that's what I buy, C&H.
Store brand is made with sugar beets.
I'll be darned.
Interesting.
And I know sugar beets are GMO.
Okay,
As long as
okay.
it's not.
That's something that I didn't know. I learned.
Sugar beets?
Were there any other
She
questions?
said some of the granulated sugar at the grocery store is either beets
Yes, ma'am.
or it's sugar cane sugar.
All cane sugar.
I have
I
two.
did too.
I desperately need two more. It's back to that being cheap thing. I want to build a metal building, but I just can't bite the bullet and do that. I need to clean some more stuff out of the garage. I could fit two more truck thing in there if I clean out that garage. But it depends on what you want to accomplish for your program. I would love to grow a little bigger, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Yes, ma'am.
Does your garage stay cool enough?
Yeah, I have a window unit in there also, and it maintains it. I have a temperature on it. It's running constantly now, but in the wintertime, it's still maintained. It's a heat strip in there, so I maintain right at 72, 75 degrees year round, and it doesn't run constantly, but it does run constantly. And can I share one more thing with you about the Hood County's Farmer Market? The people that put that together, you know, it was originally at the YMCA. It's kind of a rough location. You couldn't see us from the road when you drove by. The city of Granbury and the people who own the YMCA, there was some lease negotiation going on. And the founders of that market didn't know if they were going to have a spot to set up or not anymore, so they started looking. If you've been to the Hood County Market now, behind Stonewater Church, they got a large area, a green area, and they said, y'all can use it free of charge. And it has helped every vendor that's there. I think it's given better representation to the vendors that are there, and it's definitely helped the community. it's helped the community. So it's been a win-win-win situation. The only thing Stonewater asks is we be good stewards, clean up after ourselves, make sure there's not a bunch of debris and stuff. So the next thing that the developers did, they are strong into young entrepreneurship. If a young 10, 18 years old, that a young adult's wanting to do something to sell on their own, tell them to come out there. They'll set them up. There's the gentleman his name's Jim out of Bono, sells honey, and his grandson showed a really big interest in worms. And I've had him out to the house to help me. I gives him a little money to fold up and put in his pocket. But he's got the same line I have. He's got the worm castings. He's got the potting soils. And sometimes somebody will come want to buy something from me, and I said, "Would you go buy it from him over there?" Mm-hmm. I'm not doing this for the money, folks. I'm doing it because I love what I do, and like my wife said, I had to find something to do. It's killing her, me being home. But
Getting her hair.
if I can help anybody, I'll be proud to come look at your problem. If we don't know, maybe I can call a few people or find out we can get you an answer. Because y'all put too much time and money into your plants and everything just to have, can't figure it out. Mm-hmm. But I really feel good about offering the worm castings because it does offer the soil something that your soil is lacking if you're having any issues. And if there's no other questions, I want to thank each and every one of y'all again for having me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes, ma'am. It's every Saturday, 9 to 12, in front of the